Live, we connect with Chris Beals and Jarrett Christopher, both of Weedmaps. Christopher's company Sprout was recently acquired by Weedmaps, and Weedmaps recently filed their quarterly filings. We wanted to connect with both to check in on the progress of Weedmaps and what their progress means for the sector overall. This is Chris Beals and Jarrett Christopher. Chris and Jarrett, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having us.
I wanted to have you guys on to talk about a whole array of things because your perspective is incredibly valuable also, always, but also want to get a sense of where the business is, where it's going. The intersection of sort of technology and cannabis is what I like to talk about most. First, I don't even know where I want to go first. First, we'll go to Chris. Chris, talk about, you guys released your financials last week. You want to give us sort of high-level overview of sort of where you guys are and what you're talking about?
Yeah, so we did quarterly growth was 9% quarter over quarter, and looking at just sort of the U.S. market growth, it was actually 46% year over year for the quarter. I think that's really been an interesting thing is that we've continued to see strong growth in the U.S. and then obviously on the Canadian side, it's adjusted a little because we actually pulled down and sort of stopped monetization in Canada, and we'll be bringing that on sort of later in the year. But yeah, overall, really exciting. We closed 3 acquisitions, Sprout being one of those, and have really been, I think, leaned in on increasing the pace of hiring. We've been expanding our team, but especially across engineering, product, and design. So it's been a really busy quarter that's then leading into, with this coming quarter, some exciting betas coming out, and then I think kind of accelerating the pace of integration and pushing adoption of Sprout, and then Canveya and CanCurrent, which are the suite or the software solutions we acquired.
Love it, love it. Jarrett, we're going to go to you because I'm from Boston. Anytime I could tout companies in Boston, I'm going to do that, especially when it relates to cannabis and technology. Talk a little bit about Sprout and sort of what you guys do and what being acquired by Weedmaps means for you guys.
Sure, thanks, Jay. So Sprout is an all-in-one CRM marketing platform specifically designed for the cannabis industry. We work with both cannabis retailers, so dispensaries, brands, as well as delivery service providers as well. We joined Weedmaps. We closed on the transaction in September. And right now we've been heads down the last 2.5, 3 months, working on really tight integrations within our tech stack, as well as within data. And so I'm really excited to be here and continue to help build, take Weedmaps to the next level.
Yeah, I want to talk a little bit about that. And we'll go to you, Chris, because we do at Business of Cannabis like talking about cannabis and technology. I think we've liked that because we're a little nerdy, just sort of over time, but also over the past, I don't know, you're going to tell me like 6 months, it has been all the news in the cannabis sector that cannabis technology companies, well, raising tons of capital, going public in a whole array of ways, really being that foundation upon which new markets are going to be built. And I think that's really exciting because it's easier for a Weedmaps to move jurisdictions than it is for someone to pick up a whole cultivation platform, move it into another state, get up and running, vertically integrate, sell cannabis at retail. Like the technology is, I mean, you're going to tell me it's not cut and paste or plug and play, but it is much closer to that than sort of the cultivation side. Talk a little bit about sort of the positioning of Weedmaps in that cannabis technology landscape.
I think we're uniquely positioned in that on one side we have this big marketplace. So I'd say it's probably the biggest cannabis marketplace that's anywhere out there. What most people don't realize is so think kind of Amazon or Grubhub for cannabis. But what most people don't realize is the data normalization and how you make that actually a shoppable, searchable, discoverable experience is not easy. I think one of the toughest things we've seen in any sector outside of cannabis is how do you take non-normalized inventory or product level data and then try and normalize this? Amazon has done a ton in this space. But what we did, and this is the part that I think less people are aware of, but the other half of the business, and I mean truly half of the business, is this broad suite of B2B SaaS solutions for retailers and also for brands. And that has a hand sort of meets glove effect with the marketplace, and that if we're powering tight integrations with CRM, with loyalty, with fleet management for delivery and doing it compliantly with local regulations, that's really the back office that goes with that marketplace side of things. And then of course we offer other solutions that exist independent of the marketplace. We have an e-commerce solution where you can take this cleansed data and basically power e-commerce on your website with checkout, and then that flowing into your point of sale system. And so really, we're in a really interesting place where you mentioned sort of the complexity of the software and it varying state by state. For some parts of that solution stack, yeah, maybe a little less differentiation, but for large parts of that solution stack, the states continue and the provinces continue to kind of evolve with how they're allowing cannabis to be delivered or how they want to regulate it. And that bleeds through to the software. And so it's not simple. And that's why almost all cannabis specific software is industry specific. But on the flip side, it's obviously easier to move lines of code than it is to move physical plant and property. And I think, you know, when you think about us as sort of this technology picks and shovels type company, it also means that we can sort of operate more ubiquitously and enter markets more nimbly and quickly than if we're trying to pick up and move, you know, greenhouses or something like that.
Yeah. Jared, for you, because it was obvious. I don't know if you guys were in Las Vegas. We were in Las Vegas a couple in October, and coming from Toronto, where marketing of cannabis is like there basically isn't any, except for in store, really, and go to Las Vegas, where it is like everywhere, but every jurisdiction is different, as Chris was talking about, and that really puts the onus on sort of retailers and dispensaries and even brands to figure out compliant ways to do it, which is different by state, by country, even within country's jurisdiction. And like, is that the crux of sort of the juicy part of why folks love Sprout?
It's a key component. So I view CRM really as kind of the core. And then we have around our CRM platform an entire suite of marketing solutions. And whether it be, you know, omni-channel, so text, SMS, MMS, push notification, live chat, loyalty, all within one single solution. But we need, as your point, we need to be mindful in terms of the different regulations within each state. And so we've built also some compliance modules within the tech that helps companies kind of stay within the guardrails of what they can and can't do. And so it's another, you know, a key benefit of our CRM platform.
Chris, thinking about sort of looking at the US, and like we just did an event in New York, we're going to be back in December. Like a lot of the conversation in Las Vegas was like, not the surprise, but like Michigan, like people in Michigan just loving cannabis a lot and sort of outperforming other similar sized states. Like when you look at the US, where certainly a lot of the growth is going to be coming from over the next year or 5, like what is exciting either from a Weedmaps perspective, from your perspective, from the industry, like where are you guys thinking that, you know, tons of the growth, even the industry growth, not necessarily where Weedmaps is like going to be? Is it like the same states like New York and, you know, Florida? Like where are you guys sort of planting your flag, but also sort of doing deep dives?
Yeah, I think, look, generally east of the Mississippi, you know, you take the broad swath of that. We've had longstanding deep relationships in the markets that have existed for a longer period of time. You know, in Michigan, for instance, you know, as an East Coast market that's been around a bit longer, and it's a very, very robust market. It's one that, frankly, is still in its nascency for how it's going to grow and go and where it's going to go. Just if you look at, you know, there's still relatively few licenses compared to how many we'll eventually see. So all the East Coast markets are I think, very interesting. I think they're all going to play out very differently than a lot of existing markets. I think many of the East Coast markets have social equity programs, which require that a large number of the licenses, in some cases, New York is one example, half the licenses have to go to social equity applicants. And so, you know, for a company like us, and this is what excites me about our positioning, is yes, we have very complex solutions for large operators, but we're also there making things easier for small operators and folks who are sort of just getting started, and maybe they have one store, one cultivation site, you know, that sort of thing. And so we're really well positioned in that regard. But, you know, I think looking at these states, I think ultimately the question is going to be how quickly local governments kind of roll out licenses. And that's always the big dilemma in these jurisdictions. You know, I think we saw some good signs in this last election that local jurisdictions are going to move relatively quickly on this. So that'll be good. It'll help the markets get up and get running quickly. And then the other thing, I'll just leave this as a bit of a teaser. We're really in the first or second inning of brand and product differentiation and all the form factors and where it's going to go. I think if people think there's a lot of brands and products now, wait till 3 years from now, and how, and we really are in a pole position. And frankly, I think almost the only ones able to combine brand data with consumer discovery in a way that's going to help people figure out what is going on with all these new products.
That is exciting as hell. I feel like I live in Ontario, and we've gone from like barely any SKUs to like, I think well over 1,000. And the stores are also scrambling to figure out like, what does their array look like? And consumers are still trying to figure it out. So I think you're right. Like even Michigan, which is they're very early days, but we're 3 years in Ontario and we're still figuring it out. But same thing happening in markets like Colorado and California. New products have been marketed all the time.
I mean, think about this. In Ontario, all SKUs have to go through the Ontario provincial store, and they dictate what's on shelves and what's not. Imagine in sort of more free market systems where you can make as long as it follows the regulations and it's tested and everything else, you can make whatever you want.
That's why when we were in Las Vegas at the dispensaries, and all the Canadians' heads were like, there's like, I went to one in Las Vegas, and I think they had like, honestly, like 1,000 flower SKUs in the store. Like it was just flower, the whole array. And same thing on edibles and vapes and concentrates, and the like infused pre-roll component was like, there were 100 different options.
Oh yeah. I mean, I've seen infused sublingual strips lately. There were infused toothpicks for a while.
Guys, I want to end it there because I want people wanting more and to come find you guys and sort of reach out. So Chris and Jared, I appreciate the time. Always look forward to hearing what's happening at Weedmaps. Congratulations on the last quarter. We look forward to connect with you down the road.
Great. Thank you, Jay.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
That was Chris Beals and Jarrett Christopher of Weedmaps. If you like this program, please rate and review us wherever you heard the show. It helps support the work we do. We're able to do what we do because of ongoing partnerships with Alterna Savings, Cannabis at Work, Cannabis Benchmarks, CanDelta, Gallagher, Headset, and Torch and Maine. Find out all that we do at businessofcannabis.com.